Wait, no time. Interview again.
Just stumbled across a pretty big discovery inside of Roblox Piggy. Mr. P may not actually be responsible for the Piggy infection after all. Now, of course, you guys remember Mr. P, right? I know he hasn't been around in book 2. Big character in book 1. He was the crazy scientist that made this infected potion, trying to save his wife, and inadvertently caused the entire world to, well, turn into infected piggies. No, I'm not gonna go too far into Mr. P, but I don't know if Mr. P is actually the person behind the infection anymore. The real reason the infection started may actually be because of Mr. Stitchy and the insolence. And I got some pretty big, I got some evidence to back this up. I know you guys are thinking, oh my god, here goes Creekrat with his crazy theories again.
Nope.
Trust me, by the time this video ends, you guys are gonna be like, oh, wait a minute, that sounds pretty good. Creekrat's over here making a lot of
Yeah, I
sense
know,
these days. So all of this started when I saw the brand new mummy skin that was in Chapter 8. It was just released. Of course, it's not the bot skin, but it is one of the skins that was added in the update. It is the Kamos skin. Kamos, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. And the reason this skin is interesting is because, well, it's a mummy. Actually, it's a real-life mummy. Kamos was actually an actual pharaoh during the Egyptian time period, so that's actually pretty interesting. It's actually a real-life character, so cool. Good job, Minitoon, adding a little bit of history in there. Real-life Egyptian pharaoh got infected. But the interesting thing about the skin is, well, technically, it's not an infected piggy. Technically, it's a zombie, right? Because if this was a mummy that lived hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, then there's no way that it could have possibly gotten infected through the traditional means. Because there's two ways to get infected in the piggy universe. Number one, you get attacked by an infected piggy, or number two, you would have drank Mr. P's potion. No, of course, I don't think this pharaoh drank Mr. P's potion. In fact, we already know all the characters that did, which means that he would have had to gotten attacked by one of the infected piggies already out there. And of course, I don't think an Egyptian pharaoh had any infected piggies around during that time either. Which means that this is just a zombie that has risen out of the ground, come back to life, and is somehow infected. Now, you may know where I'm going with this, but this brings us back to Zompiggy. Zompiggy is the bot inside of Subway Chapter 7 in Book 1, and we still don't know about this character. Because the weird thing about Zompiggy is we know that Zompiggy is a zombie. One, from the name. In fact, in the Chinese version, they had to change the name from Zompiggy because they don't allow zombies in Chinese media. So we know that Zompiggy is a zombie. In the Chinese version, he's literally called Risen Piggy, meaning he rose out of the ground. Now, if Mr. P's potion didn't touch either the mummy or the Zompiggy, and obviously they weren't attacked by an infected piggy, then how in the world did they get infected? Apart from these two skins, there are no other skins that are, well, zombies, I guess you could say. I mean, technically, the mummy's a mummy, but a mummy is kind of like a zombie. It's just, it's a zombie with band-aids, okay? And I mean, looking at the state of Zompiggy's skin, I mean, half of his skin is literally falling off of his face, so he's been infected for quite a while. And by the time we actually reached the subway in Chapter 7, the infection was only going on for a few weeks, which seems way too early for Zompiggy to just be like breaking apart like that. Especially compared to all the other infected piggies, they're not breaking apart yet. So what's going on with Zompiggy? What's going on with this mummy? Also, I just found out that Zompiggy is actually a female. It doesn't really matter, but just thought I'd throw that out there before people complain in the comments. Now, there's two other interesting things about this. All right, number one, Zompiggy was probably around before the infection started. And number two, well, let's talk about Mr. Stitchy. We also know that Mr. Stitchy was around before the infection started. In Book 2, Chapter 1, the Owlie's Map, alright, back during the Halloween, I think from like October to like January. If you played the Owlie's Map, right back there in the background was Mr. Stitchy watching us, the player, and Doggy before we captured Willow Wolf. And according to Minitoon's rules, if something shows up actually in the game in a cutscene, then it is canon, meaning Mr. Stitchy was there. Mr. Stitchy is canon in the game. So if Mr. Stitchy was there before the infection started, because keep in mind the Owlie's Map takes place before the infection started, that means that the insolence was around before the infection started. So what if it's possible that Mr. Stitchy or someone working with him, maybe he even possessed Mr. P, or he tampered with the potion, he did something to actually alter the potion and make the infection get started. He used Mr. P, and now everybody is blaming Mr. P. Mr. P thinks it was actually him, but in reality, it could have actually been Mr. Stitchy doing something weird or crazy. I mean, he's some crazy, like, paranormal demon dude. I mean, he's got some powers. Now, there's something else really interesting here that I want to bring up that kind of ties all of this together. So, Minitoon has talked a lot about the eye color and the pupil color of piggies and the infected versions of the piggies mattering a lot. Of course, we don't know exactly what each eye color means. Obviously, like red eyes, blue eyes, yellow.
Blue eyes mean that he was a very poor innocent soul. White eyes mean he was a very poor innocent soul. But blue means he was actually sad. And he was killed in a more brutal way. Well, infected in a more brutal way. And that also, and white means he was a good angel, so this means Rays were just a very good person. Like and rat for life. Like and rat for life. Like and spike rat. Okay. I took a screenshot, whatever. So, that is something. You know. Let's get back in the video.
Yellow eyes, orange eyes, etc. That hasn't been fully revealed yet, but Minitoon has said to pay attention to the eye color of the infected because it does, in fact, mean something. Now, what's really interesting here is there's 3 skins in the game that have a pure white eye. And I'm not talking a white pupil, I'm talking a pure white eye with no pupil whatsoever. Can you guess what those 3 skins are? I'll give you a hint. One of them is non-canon so far, and the other 2 are canon. The one that's non-canon, it doesn't matter in this example, is Pony. The infected version of Pony has a pure white eye, which is interesting because Pony is one of the only characters in the game that actively talks about hearing the whispering in his head, about hearing the insolence talk to him and talk through him in his head. Guess what the other 2 skins are? You might be on the right track. Okay, Mr. Stitchy and Zompiggy. So crazy idea here. Maybe not so crazy, but check this out. Mr. Stitchy is talking to Pony. He's getting in his head. He's whispering in his head, and Pony has a pure white eye, just like Mr. Stitchy. And then, of course, Zompiggy, the infected piggy that was around or had to have been around before the infection started, would have had to get infected some other way other than the Mr. P method. Maybe he's being controlled by something. Check this out, a pure white eye, just like Mr. Stitchy. Could Mr. Stitchy be controlling Zompiggy directly? Maybe that's the link here. Again, I'm kind of just spitballing here because we're not 100% sure what all the eye colors mean, but it is really interesting that the only 3 characters and skins in the game that have a pure white eye with no pupil are the ones directly linked to Mr. Stitchy and or hearing the voices in their head. Tie this into the fact that there are some piggies that are getting infected and rising up from the ground that have not been attacked by an infected piggy. Obviously, an Egyptian mummy would not have been around or lived long enough to get infected by an infected piggy. They lived hundreds of years ago. And of course, Zompiggy too. So it makes you think. And also, why in the world was Mr. Stitchy watching us when we were arresting Willow Wolf in the alleys? Maybe he knew what was coming. Maybe he was watching us because he knew what was going to happen in the future. Because Mr. Stitchy and the Insolence are actually the real reasons the infection started. Maybe Mr. P is innocent after all. Anyway, somewhat of a out there crazy theory here, I know, but I thought it's really interesting that we now have another skin in the game that is, well, infected, but not infected through the traditional means. A zombie, if you would like to say that. Let me know your thoughts down below, though. And of course, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, red button underneath the video. Keep using star code Real Creep when you're buying your Roblox Premium, and I'll see you guys later today because our U2s is going to be launching at 3 p.m. EST. We're going to be live for the launch. It's going to be really exciting. I'm super pumped for it. Hopefully, you guys enjoy it. Creepcraft U2s. I'll have a link down in the pinned comment for it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.
No. Wait. Horse. No, wait. They know horse? Oh, God. No. No horse means no life.